Hi, I'm Words here, and I'm making a game. A different game, again, this time. I'd actually hinted that I might be doing this. And I'd actually thought of some things to do with the original game that I'd started with, but I guess I might be a little burned out on it, and I'm going to take a break from it again. This is another kind of big project, though, and it's something I've actually worked on in the past, and I think I definitely have the code for it still, but I'm not going to start in the middle of that. I'd already started in the middle of the first one, and then I think it was more interesting and kind of more fun for me to actually start from scratch on something. So I want to do that again with something a little more robust. So and maybe even explain a little bit more. I hadn't really thought of this as a tutorial, more of like almost a documentary on one amateur guy making a game, I guess. But I don't know. I think it could work as a tutorial too, and I might as well explain this time actually what it is I do when I make a game in GameMaker. It's a I've mentioned before that I know how to work in C# with things like XNA. I've done that before, and it's fine. Actually, I did something similar to what I'm about to do in XNA once, just for fun, really, which is really what all I do anyway. So it doesn't same difference, but that's what I'm going to be working on is something like that. Actually, you can see it if you can read the name up there, side scroll. I'm going to make a side-scrolling sort of game, and but I'm going to try to tell you exactly what it is I do with GameMaker. It's very simple. It's very, but it can be almost robust. I've used that word twice now. That's weird. That's a weird word to use. Okay. It can almost. I think it can actually make a perfectly good game, and especially like I mean maybe just a prototype. If you need more power, more more. You'll get less stability, but more choice, more ability to optimize with something like C#, as opposed to GameMaker. And I can understand like making a game there that makes more sense if you really want to seriously make a game. But if you just want to make something either for fun, or even if you do just have a more simple idea, GameMaker is at least a great place to start. Because I think you can make a perfectly good game, and I'm going to show you how. I've already been showing you how, I hope. But first, we're gonna create a room. You have to have a room in GameMaker. It's where stuff happens. But nothing happens if you don't have anything in the room. And we're not gonna do anything really with it to start with. We might name it. I usually call like the first room I make debug, something like that. Just because that's where I start making the game, and that's where I debug all of the code that I initially create. So next, you have to create an object which is gonna go into the room. I usually create some sort of game object. Game, that's what I call it, because it's not the game, but it's the it's an object that kind of represents all of the functions of the game. And then I'm going to make an event for creation. This means that on creation, the stuff over here is going to happen. So we have code. I can execute code. I can execute a script, which gets from a script from over here, but I'm going to use execute code. It's kind of the same thing as a script that you can create over here, but specific. It's just made in this actions area. It's specific to that. So let's see. What I'm going to be doing, and I already brought up Paint specifically for this, but here's how it works. And I like I said, I've done this before, and so I know it works. At least once I've sussed out everything that I'll have inevitably forgotten. But basically, how normally you have like a platformer, you have like you have tiles, right? That's if you look around in like a Mario or whatever. I mean, those, especially in something like that, it's very obvious. You can see them very clearly. They're not exactly hidden. You have tiles, and then you have your character that moves around on the tiles, and that's fine. And I've done that. I've actually at one point done that in GameMaker. I didn't like it. I don't like it very much at all. Actually, it's mostly I think because of GameMaker. I think if you did it in something else, it'd be a lot simpler. But because you could actually just make it from scratch and make it work, as opposed to GameMaker. It acts like it's supposed to work for it, specifically, and then it doesn't work. I mean, you have to do a lot to make it actually to kind of trick to just, finagle it into working with that sort of system. Mostly because of the collision testing, where you'll have an object falling down onto something, and it'll phase through, or it'll get stuck and all that sort of thing, and it's a mess usually. I don't know if they fixed any of that because I haven't really played with it since the latest updates. But what I'm going to do is different. I think it's going to work mostly for the sort of game I'm thinking of here, which is the sort of like beat 'em up sort of game. I can't really think of a good example, but of what it is I'm thinking of. But more like a beat 'em up where you move from point A to point B, and you attack the enemies that are there. There might be some platforms, but it's not really platforming. But it's just a side-scrolling, sort of beat 'em up sort of thing. Is what I'm thinking of. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to have points like this, and each of these points will be represented on a list, and when the character is in some particular position, the game will find out what the height of the floor would be at that position, considering the 2 points that it's between. So the character keeps track of the fact that I'm here and here, right? So it knows I'm at this node, this is the next node, and it figures out the angle of this, and figures out the height at which, based on that, like it takes the angle and the height. Well, not the height. The height is what it's figuring out. Sorry, the angle, the height of this compared to this, and then it figures out what the height is here. Actually, what I ended up doing, I'd actually originally, I remember this now. Like I said, I'm going to kind of remember this as I go along because I always do that. I never remember what it is I did before. What I ended up doing, actually, and this worked just fine, I actually figured out what it actually ends up doing is taking the how far in you are from this node to this node, and basically it just gets a percentage. So it divides this side by that side, and then multiplies that by the height of the next node, and that's the percentage, like that's how high you would be between those two nodes. It's a lot simpler than the trigonometry that gets involved, and ended up being a huge pain in the ass. But and the same can be done the other way if it's this way, where the first node is like higher up. All you have to do is you reverse it, which is a lot more, which is where it becomes simpler than the getting the, like if I got the angle between here and here, and then as opposed to here, and then I had to switch it around with all that. Well, you might remember if you'd been watching all the problems I'd had with Mr. Zero over here, and similar problems arise with this. But then I cannot draw. Here, wait. I'm in Paint. What am I thinking? And and then you get like. So you get like points like that, and you'll have more later that connected. And the character will if they're in the air, they fall onto that platform, onto that part of the world, and then you can move left and right, and yeah, it's pretty simple. Really, it's a simple system. I'd actually also thought of ways of making objects, in the air for like platforms. Those worked in a similar way, but what I did was I create this is the position of the object, the platform. It's the object that represents the platform. This stuff, all that is in that game. Wow, that's not as G at all, is it? The game object that I just made is going to house all of this information for the level. Individual platforms like that are hovering there for whatever reason would actually be these objects where, okay, this is the X and Y position of the object itself, right? And it keeps track of that, and then the nodes for like going along the side and how many there are, so that you can create like you could create a more complex object. And actually what it would do is it would keep track of the position, the X and Y position with the top left point on that platform. The nodes, there would be two sets of nodes. One set for the upper half and the top of the platform, and another set for the bottom half of the platform. And the upper half, if your character is above it, and there's ways of I'd thought of. I hadn't actually implemented any of this part of the code. This could be the more interesting part of making this for both of us. But I hadn't actually implemented this, where there were ways I could figure out which platform the character is above, and which to actually look at, which to test for where they are. But when they fall on top of it, the ones on top then determine how high up to hold the character when they land, and the ones on bottom determine where to stop the character when they try to jump up into the platform. So that's how that system's supposed to work, in theory. Yeah, and then we're gonna start on the code for that, and I might pause. I might do the pausing thing for the code because we can maybe start and see if I can see where it goes. I am going to pause and get a drink of water, though, really quick. So I was going to go ahead and try out talking about the code as I do it. It's pretty simple to start with. Yeah, I'm going to have to pause. I probably will. We'll try. What we need is we need a variable, a set of variables to keep track of the floor of level. So we're going to call it. Well, I called it before was level. Let's call it. Let's call it floor. No, I can't call it that. Well, we could call it floor level node x, and then we're creating an array here. This is the and the 0th item in that array is the and there's actually 2 arrays. I could actually make it a matrix if I wanted to, but I don't know. That's silly. I don't no, yeah. No, yeah, it makes more sense as 2, isn't it? Yeah. Yeah, because then I could make it so it was with the second thing being whether it was X or Y, and that'd be dumb. That's dumb. That's dumb. I'm not doing that. That's dumb. Same amount of memory. You have the X and Y position here, 2 different arrays that will keep track of each node going along in the level. I should also have a variable keeping track of the number of nodes that the level has, and then what I'm going to end up doing, just to test it to start, I'll give it, first off, before you actually do anything else, I always forget to do this and I end up starting it with nothing happening. Bam! You go into the objects in your room, select in this big blank space if you don't have it actually like sprites for your objects, which I don't right now, and you click on the one you want, and then you just put it anywhere. It doesn't matter if it's just going to execute code, but I put it up in the corner when I just want to execute code. And then and there's your object. That's going to do everything for the game for now. There will be another object for a character later, but for now just that one. And what I'm going to end up doing is, for starters, I'm going to try putting the nodes in specific places, just to, we'll get it drawing lines or something between them so we can see it. And that'll just be the basics, the starting structure. So then I add these 3 nodes really quick, just copied and pasted the arrays over and gave them each a different position. And then I'll be able to add another event. This is the draw event. When actions occur here, they occur every step, well, every time the frame is drawn actually, which is, I think, depends sort of on the refresh rate of the monitor, but it doesn't actually matter to GameMaker. GameMaker doesn't give you any options for that, I don't think. Just worry about the fact that it makes things draw on the screen every time it draws things on the screen. So what we're going to do is we're going to do a little for loop, and first actually you can make variables that'll be destroyed after the script is done, like that, var, and then we're going to make a for loop for I equals 0, I is less than num level nodes. Maybe I should have paused for this too. Oh well, how else am I going to fill out 30 minutes? Ha 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 ha. No, actually I usually end up running out before I finish anything. Oh well. So what we're doing here, this is a for loop. quite frankly, I think I'm going to assume we're a little more advanced than, obviously, if you haven't used GameMaker, but we're assuming you have maybe done some programming, so hopefully you know what a for loop is, but basically this is going to go through each and every node in the level by just starting at 0 and going until the number of nodes, well, less than that anyway, and then as long as it's less than it, it doesn't, that's different, but anyway, it's going to have to draw, well actually, come to think of it, for what we're doing here, it should actually start at node number uno and actually do draw. What we're doing is we're drawing a line from level node xi. Actually, I'm going to pause. So what we're doing is drawing a line from the previous node to the current node in the list as we go through it, starting with the second item, even though it says 1. It makes sense. It's actually because it starts at 0 in an array if you're doing them correctly, as opposed to the way GameMaker actually prefers to do them, but it'll let you do it the right way. So that's nice of them. But yeah, that's how that works. Yay! And that should actually work. Yes, I did actually. I actually added the item, the object into there. Woo! It doesn't work. I actually put the second node the wrong place, so it draws it in an odd way. Let me put it in the right place. I didn't put it. Let's say half the room width. It's an even number, so it should work out. Even if it weren't, it would still work out, I'm pretty sure. Doop-de-doo! Ta-da! It's a mountain! And it does nothing. It's actually completely meaningless right now, but it won't be. It won't be meaningless. We're going to create a second object, and we're going to call this chara. For now, it's not going to need any sort of collision checking, but because I want to show you stuff, I want to make this a little more tutorial-y to maybe make people actually interested or whatever. I'm going to say, we're going to make a sprite chara. This is going to be the sprite for that character. And here's the thing. Guess what? You might have noticed, if you have been watching, again, I can't draw. So we're going to make this kind of, you know, a circle. It's kind of ghetto, as it were, but, you know, it's cool. Ghetto. And actually, I don't know if that's big enough. 32 by 32. Yeah, it's big. Well, it depends on how big we want our guy to be, and we don't know how big that is yet, do we? Let's just make it 40, maybe? I'm not sure. Not sure that it matters either, so I don't know. Maybe a little bigger and then we'll stop. Alright. Close enough. Circle, circle. Go, go, go. Let's just do this. Alright. Sprite. You can make sprites in GameMaker, and I would not recommend it at all. It's kind of shit. You can't actually, like, none of the tools work the way you'd expect them to, and like in an actual thing you might, where you know, an actual, like, see, like you can, like in GIMP shop, you can look that up, you can search for that on, you can, let me Google that for you, you can, it actually will let you do good things, and it's free. It'll run on, I believe, either Mac or Windows. Of course, Windows is the glorious overlord of us all, and we should bow down. No, I don't know. I don't really care, I guess. But you can't actually do anything. Like, you'd think you'd be able to do something like select that area and then, oh, only draw. No, you can't. Like, it doesn't work at all. It's awful. But yeah, I can draw a circle in it. Sure. There you go. There's the sprite. All right, we're gonna center it. Nah, well, yeah. Yeah, you can center. This is how you. The origin is where it's gonna draw it. Like, if this is, you know, X and Y, is it, you know, if this is top of the map, you know, at 0, 0, and that's where your character is, it's going to draw it right there like that. That's where the 0, 0 would go. That's where that position would end up, and everything else would be around it. And what we're going to do is we're going to use this as a mask. There's nothing to collide with, and there won't technically be anything like that at all yet, but we're going to, it's cool. We don't need precise collision checking, that's dumb. And then press OK, and then we can actually give our character that sprite, and that way what I'd normally do, and we might end up using the draw function anyway, in which case what we'd do is we'd say, once you make the draw function, it stops drawing your sprite normally. You have to, because if I do this, here, watch this. We'll delete this. We'll say okay. We'll go into debug. We'll put our game guy in. Now watch this. Any second now. Okay, see? Ah, ta-da! Look at that, our guy. Wait, watch this though. I'm gonna leave visible checked. If it's unchecked, the object is invisible. But here, put in a comment, draw. I'm gonna watch them change this. Oh, there we go. It's gone. Whoops! What happened? Ah! I've had that actually. I think I might have panicked a little actually. I couldn't figure out what was wrong when I first started using GameMaker. I taught myself everything, all this stuff. Not to brag or anything, but I was too stupid to ask for help. I didn't know these dumb, obvious things. But you actually have to say draw sprite. You can say sprite x -1 x, y. That little bit of code will actually, in the draw function, draw the sprite of the character as opposed to not. If you don't have it in there, it won't work. You have to tell it to draw the sprite if you use the draw event. Otherwise, yeah. So what we do here is sprite index is the sprite that I've given it. -1 is the default sub image. That's the the first item in the sprite. Like it's more advanced sprite stuff, but you can actually have various images for the sprite. So, and you can also like split it up based on like a grid, you know, like a char set, like in, you know, old school RPGs, that sort of thing. At least in like, or not old school RPGs, all actually games, but back then, but and now probably. I have no idea how they would do it now, but they might have them in separate files. Point is, they used to have them. They at least definitely used to have them in single files, and then you'd draw a grid on it and you'd cut it up. But that's advanced stuff that I'm not even going to get into probably ever, because I can't even draw in the first place to make sprites, so we're not going to worry about it. In any case, just know you put -1 if you want the if you put anything but -1 or 0. I'm pretty sure it'll throw you an error if you only have the one image. So there you go, draw. And now we would be able to actually make it do other things with the draw function now, but we're not going to. So what we are going to do is we're going to start adding. We're going to add the create event, and we're going to give that code too. And what that's going to do is that's going to create just like the game, obviously, just like the game object. We're going to create all the variables and things that's going to, you know, start off our little character guy. The way I'd done this before, I had well, we'll say level mode, I guess, because, okay, so then we're gonna, well, the way I'd done it before, I'd actually, I'd had, like, say, jumping equals false, you know, like that, and then you'd be, if your character jumped, then it would be jumping equals true, and then all the checks would actually look at that for whether or not to make the character fall, as opposed to, you know, being able to jump, because, you know, obviously you can't jump if you're already in the air, unless you have double jump. Different story. But, what I'm actually thinking about doing this time, I don't think that was actually necessarily the most efficient way to do it. Instead, I'm going to try to see if I can make it so that it figures out if the character is, and I did not close this, right? It's going to figure out like if the character is above that position, and if so, it's going to make them fall. And if they're below that position, it's going to make them snap to that position. Not exactly, actually. We have to keep track of the size of their sprite, which I think I can actually do. Let's find out. Oh, here's a helpful button. I press this all the time, even for things that I should already know. I don't use sprites usually. I actually just draw circles, and I give it a radius, and then I can just look at that. But hey, look, here you go. Sprite height. You can actually check that. If you do sprite, what it should be, I think it's sprite index.sprite height, but it might be. Well, let's open that again instead of closing it like a dumbhead. Indicates the height of the sprite. It's going to change. I have to assume it's either sprite height will give you the height for the sprite that is currently the sprite of the object, or it's sprite index dot sprite height. One of those. I don't actually know. Maybe it's example. Nope, doesn't say. Cool. That's useful. No, it's not. Either way, I don't actually know yet, but it's not going to matter. Not yet, anyway. That'll matter later when we actually have the guy falling and hitting the ground. For now, we just have to know that the character has an X and Y position, and that's going to be enough for making it fall, or snap to the ground. But we're going to have to do, we do have to keep track of other things though, and let's put those in here. Spud. If you put speed, that's the actual that's the speed of the object, and that's not going to work. You can't use variables that are already used, and speed is used. So we're going to say spud. That's going to be speed of the character. I'm going to say speed spud. Sorry, equals. Let's 10 is nice and round, and jump speed. Let's say is 30,000. I don't care. 10 again. 10 round. Yeah. We like 10, don't we? And then we might give the character gravity, but it's also a variable. You can. It actually has built-in functions for all of this stuff that we're not going to use because we're just too cool for school. But I'm going to call it grav then. And that's how fast they. Well, that's actually what it's going to be. It's going to be a speed at which it increases the speed at which they fall. You'll see. It's 1. Well, 2. Sure. Why the hell not? Fall speed equals. Actually, let's call this speed is okay. Here, we'll actually have a vertical speed. That's actually the current vertical velocity, and even though we call it speed, it's velocity. It doesn't matter. It's just a variable. Damn it! The game maker doesn't know. It won't judge us for using the wrong term. Vert speed, jump speed. That's actually what this is going to be. Is the speed at which your character jumps initially. So like you'll shoot up at 10. Well, we could say pixels. It's actually points. I know it's hard to describe, but and that'll set the vert speed to 10, and then your character will shoot up at 10. But as gravity kicks in, it'll actually subtract that out of the vert speed until it reaches negative. And once it's negative, and your character hits the bottom of the, hits the floor, they'll stop moving again. Yay! That's always nice. But if we don't set it, it'll go on infinitely. You'll just keep fall at just an infinite speed, and that'll get you shooting through the floor, and it'll look ugly when the game goes. So we have to set a terminal velocity, and we can call that something shorter. So we can termvel is the terminal velocity of the character. We're going to say we'll say this is the fastest they can move. Period. So we'll just we'll use the absolute value, but it'll be well, let's set it to 12. I don't know. Sure. Doesn't really matter. They can fall a little faster than they can jump then. Oh, and I'm out of time, but let's see what we can wrap up real quick in 2 minutes. So now that's all the variables really we're going to need. And then we're going to start, here's what I'm going to put in. I'm going to put in the very basic. You're going to see your character floating around like a dipshit. Just going to, yeah. So we're going to use events for this. I often end up using, later we're going to add a step event either way, but for now I'm going to leave it alone and use something simpler because I want to show you this. This is the simple way to do this. You can actually make it so that there's an event for left, and that's the left key on your keyboard. Whenever that's being pressed, this bit of code here will get executed. If we can say x minus equals, because we're going left, it's going to be subtracting as the origin is at 0. The origin 0, 0 is actually at the top left of the screen, so we're subtracting if we're moving left. You do spud, and we're going to ignore the fact that that means you can go off the side of the screen. Going right, same thing except the other way. Spud. And this is how we're going to wrap it up with a floating, with flying, wee, loading, wee, douche. And it's actually on press, but you get the idea. Actually, I can actually fix that. I made it on press, but it should have been. What I meant to say was keyboard left. Change keyboard right. If you do pressed, it means every time it's pressed, not when it's being held. And this is actually going to be a bad idea in the end. I think there are various reasons not to do this, but wee, the ground's down here. It's down here. I can't reach it. I'm floating in the air. That is all, actually. I'm done for now. Actually, this is the first video for next week. Ugh, so this is Monday. That makes sense. We're starting fresh on so many levels, and tomorrow I'm going to go ahead and get him actually falling. But for now, this is what we've got. 30 minutes of variables. Yum. See you next time. Be sure to subscribe so you can find out what I do next, and maybe later we can actually get back to the game I started with. For now, join me for more side-scrolling shenanigans and tutorials and things. Bye.